I was staring right at my neighbor's chest, and she was looking straight back at me. That is how the worst moment of my life started. My name is Ryan Carter. I am a graphic designer, which sounds cooler than it is. Most days I sit in a small apartment in Harbor Bay and make logos and websites for people who say things like, "I love it, but can you change everything?" I moved to Harbor Bay 8 months ago because I thought living near the ocean would fix something in me. I thought the sound of the waves would make me less stressed, less lonely, less tired. I was wrong. I still worked all the time. I still felt worn out every day. I still had no real friends. My apartment had a nice view of the water, but most of the time my blinds were half closed, and I stared at my computer instead. My neighbor Emma lived in the apartment right next to mine. We shared a wall. At night, I sometimes heard soft jazz through it. Smooth piano, quiet sax, the kind of music people play in movie scenes where they drink wine and look perfect. Emma always looked like that when I saw her. Perfect. We would pass in the hallway maybe once a week. She would be in a neat blazer or a fitted dress, blonde hair pulled back tight, a leather bag over her shoulder. Even when she checked her mail, she looked like she was on her way to a meeting. She would smile and say, "Hey." I would say, "Hey," back in my old hoodie and worn sneakers. Then we would both keep walking. That was our entire relationship. One Sunday afternoon, I hit a wall. I had worked 17 days in a row without a real break. My eyes burned from staring at my monitor. My shoulders and back felt like wood. Everything in my head was just noise. I knew if I did not get out of my apartment, I was going to lose it. So I grabbed an old folding chair from my closet. I pulled on some shorts and a t-shirt that did not match. I did not even look in the mirror. I locked my door and walked the 4 blocks down to Shoreline Beach. The second my feet hit the sand, I felt a little better. The air smelled like salt and sunscreen. The sound of the waves was steady and strong. Kids were building sand castles. A dog chased a ball. Couples walked near the water, hand in hand. I found a spot a little away from everyone else and set up my folding chair. I had brought a paperback thriller with me, something about a detective who walks into the wrong room and knows right away that something is off. I opened the book and tried to read, but my brain would not stop. "You have 3 projects due next week," it said. "You should be working. Why are you here? You are wasting time." I took a breath and forced myself to look up. I told myself I needed to pretend to be a normal person for at least one afternoon. No clients, no emails, just ocean. That was when I saw her, Emma. She was about 30 feet away, near a big blue beach umbrella. At first, I did not recognize her. Her hair was down, loose and wavy, falling past her shoulders instead of pulled back tight. She wore a bright yellow swimsuit and a white wrap tied around her waist. She was laughing at something another woman said. It was not her hallway smile. It was a real laugh. She looked different, softer, happy. For a second, I thought about walking over to say hi, but the idea felt strange. We barely spoke in our own building. If I walked up to her at the beach, in my faded t-shirt and messy hair, I was sure it would come off weird. So I kept my eyes on my book. Or I tried to. I kept glancing up. She and her friend spread out towels, put on sunscreen, talked, and laughed. They looked like they were having a good day, the kind of day I'd forgotten how to have. Then things changed fast. Emma's friend got a call and stood up with an annoyed look on her face. She walked toward the water, pacing and waving her free hand as she talked into her phone. Emma stayed by the umbrella, digging through a big canvas bag. She pulled out sunglasses, a water bottle. Then she stood and reached for her white wrap. She started adjusting it, tugging it a little higher like she was tightening it around herself. That was when the wind hit. A strong gust rolled over the beach. The umbrella near me shook so hard it almost flew out of the sand. I reached out and grabbed it on instinct. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Emma's wrap lift. The wind caught the light fabric and yanked it clean off her body before she could grab it. 1 second, it was wrapped around her. The next, it was flapping through the air behind her like a white flag. For 2 or 3 long, frozen seconds, Emma stood there, topless, and I was looking right at her. My brain shut down. My eyes took in the sight before my mind understood what it was seeing. Then everything snapped back at once. Her hands flew up to cover herself. She spun, grabbed the wrap, and yanked it across her chest. As she did, her gaze shot up and met mine. Her face went from surprise to shock to pure horror. I felt my own face go hot. I dropped my eyes to my book so fast my neck hurt. My heart pounded against my ribs. I could hear my pulse in my ears. All I could think was, I am the creep at the beach. I am the weird neighbor who stares. It did not matter that it was an accident. It did not matter that the wind was to blame. It did not matter that I would have cut my own eyes out rather than make her feel exposed. What mattered was that she had seen me looking, and I had seen her notice me looking. I glued my eyes to the page. I was not reading. The words blurred together. I just needed somewhere to look that was not her. The detective knew something was wrong the moment he entered the room. I read that line again and again. 10 times. 20 times. I could not lift my head. My body felt locked in place. Maybe I should move to a different city, I thought, or dig a hole and live in the sand. After what felt like both 5 seconds and 5 hours, I risked a tiny glance up. Just a quick one. Emma was talking to her friend, who had come back from her call. They were both looking in my direction. My stomach dropped. She was telling her friend about the creep who had been staring. Of course she was. Maybe they were about to march over and yell at me. Maybe they would call security. Could you get kicked off a public beach for this? Arrested? I told myself I would wait 5 more minutes. Then I would stand up, fold my chair, and walk calmly back to my car. Not run. Running would make me look guilty. Just walk like a normal person who had not just lived the most mortifying moment of his life. I did not make it to 5 minutes. I saw movement in the corner of my eye, someone walking across the sand toward me. Please be a random person, I thought. Please be anyone else. The footsteps stopped right next to my chair. A shadow fell across my book. My throat went dry. I looked up slowly. Emma stood there, wrap pulled tight around her, sunglasses pushed up on top of her head. Her hair moved a little in the wind. Her eyes were fixed on me. She did not look angry exactly, just serious, intense. "Hey," she said. My mouth tried to form words, but nothing came out at first. Then everything came out at once. "I am so sorry," I blurted. "I did not mean to look." "The wind grabbed your wrap, and I was already facing that way, and I know how that sounds, and I swear I am not some creep, I just—" She lifted her hand, and I shut up. "It is fine," she said. Her voice was calm, which only confused me more. "These wraps are useless when it is windy." She glanced at my book, then back at me. "Can we talk for a minute?" she asked. My brain shorted out. Emma, the perfect neighbor I had barely spoken to, the woman I had just seen in the most private way, was asking to sit and talk like this was some normal afternoon. I nodded, because I did not trust my voice. My heart hammered as she lowered herself down onto the sand beside my chair. I had no idea that this awful, embarrassing moment was about to change everything between us. Emma sat down on the sand next to my chair like this was completely normal, like we did this all the time. Up close, she looked different from the hallway version of herself. Her hair was a little messy from the wind. Her cheeks were pink from the sun. She looked less like some perfect businesswoman and more like an actual person. "I have been meaning to introduce myself properly," she said. "I mean, we have been neighbors for 8 months and we barely know each other." "That is kind of strange, right?" It took my brain a second to catch up. Yeah, I said. "I guess it is." Quote. She pointed toward her friend, who was pacing near the water with her phone pressed to her ear again. "My friend Melissa had to take a work call," Emma said. "I was sitting there by myself, and I saw you over here, and I thought maybe this is a sign. Maybe I should stop just saying hi in the hallway and running away." She gave a small smile. I did not plan for the universe to make such a dramatic icebreaker, though. I let out a nervous laugh. That is one way to describe it. She tilted her head, studying my face for a second. "Look," she said, "the wind caught my wrap. It happens. I am not here to make this more awkward than it has to be. You reacted like a decent person. You looked away. So let's just call it bad timing and move on. Deal." "Deal," I said fast. My shoulders dropped a little, like someone had taken a weight off them. "Okay," she said. "Then let me start over. I am Emma." "I know," I said, then felt stupid. "I mean, I have seen your mail by the boxes." She laughed. "So you know my last name is Wallace, and that I get way too many packages." Quote. "Pretty much," I said. "I am Ryan Carter." "I know," she said. "I can hear you typing through the wall at midnight. I figured only a freelancer would be working that late." I blinked. "You can hear that?" "Sometimes," she said. "Not in a bad way. Just in a wow, this guy never stops working kind of way." "Graphic design," I said, answering the question she had not asked yet. "Websites, logos, all the usual stuff. Clients send changes at 11 at night and expect them done by morning. Freelance life." She nodded like that made sense. "I am a marketing strategist," she said. "I work remote too. I moved here from Boston thinking I would slow down, but I just ended up being stressed with a better view." "That is exactly how I feel," I said. "I moved from Seattle. I thought the ocean would fix my life. Turns out I am just burned out near water instead of burned out near rain." Emma smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "So we are both tired workaholics with ocean views we never enjoy," she said. "Good to know." We started talking. It felt strange at first, like trying on a shirt you are not sure will fit. But then it got easier. She asked about my favorite projects. I told her about a logo I did for a small bookstore that actually loved my work. She told me about a client who wanted her to triple their sales in 2 weeks, with no budget. "They do not even have a real product yet," she said. "Just an idea. They want me to sell the idea of their idea." "That is insane," I said. "Welcome to my job," she replied. I told her about the client who asked for 73 revisions on a simple design. 73, she said. "That is not a client, that is a hostage situation." We both laughed, and it surprised me how good it felt to laugh like that with someone. The whole time, part of my brain kept whispering, "You saw her. She knows you saw her." But Emma never brought it up again. She sat there with her wrap snug around her, shoulders relaxed, like we were just two neighbors catching up after years of not talking. After a while, she went quiet. Her eyes drifted out toward the water. "Can I ask you something kind of personal?" she said. My chest tightened, but I nodded. "Sure." "How do you think people find balance?" she asked. "Like really find it between work and life without feeling guilty all the time?" I thought about my apartment, my computer, the long nights of trying to meet deadlines. "Honestly," I said, "I have no idea. I am the last person who has that figured out." She gave a small laugh. "Fair, but you moved here trying to find it. That says something." "I guess," I said, "but now I am just tired in a different zip code." "At least the view is better," she said, nodding toward the ocean. We sat together for longer than I expected. The sun moved a little lower in the sky. The air cooled down. We talked about the bad coffee at the shop on Harbor Street, but how their muffins made up for it. We talked about how we both loved the sound of waves at night but rarely went outside to listen. I could not remember the last time I had talked to someone like this. No small talk, no fake interest, just honest words. Melissa finally finished her call and started walking back toward us. She eyed me with cautious curiosity. "That is my cue," Emma said, standing up and brushing sand off her legs. "I should get back before she thinks I have run away forever." She took a step, then turned back to me. "Hey," she said. "There is a neighborhood gathering next Saturday. Some people from our building and a few from the next one meet at the community center. I usually make an excuse and stay home, but this time I am thinking of going." She paused. "You should come too," she added. "I can text you the details. That is, if you want to go and not just hide behind your computer." My heart jumped a little. "I would like that," I said. "But how are you going to text me?" She smiled and pulled her phone out of her bag. "Give me your number, Carter." I live next door, not in another universe. We exchanged phones and entered our numbers. She saved mine as Ryan next door. I saved hers as Emma Wall. She noticed and laughed. "Nice, very creative." "Thank you." "I am a professional," I said with a slight bow. She shook her head, still smiling, then walked back to Melissa. I watched them talk. At one point, Emma glanced back at me. Our eyes met, and this time there was no panic, just something warm and curious. I stayed at the beach for another hour, but my book stayed closed. My mind kept replaying everything. The wind, the panic, the walk across the sand. The way Emma had sat down next to me on purpose and turned a disaster into a real conversation. The most mortifying moment of my life had somehow shifted into something else. Something that felt like a beginning. The next few days crawled by. I kept checking my phone like a teenager who had just given his number to his crush. I told myself not to overthink it. We were just neighbors. She had just been kind. That was all. On Thursday night, I was hunched over my desk working on a logo when my phone buzzed. Neighborhood gathering this Saturday at 6 at the community center. You should come. A second message followed. Also, do you like Thai food? I stared at the screen, reading it 3 times. My heart sped up. Yeah, I typed back. I will be there. And yes, I like Thai. Why? There is a new place on Harbor Street, she replied. Want to try it before the gathering? We can go over to the center together after. Less awkward that way. I could almost hear her voice in those words. Sounds good, I wrote. What time? I will knock on your door at 5, she sent back. You are literally 10 feet away. No need to pick you up. I smiled. Deal, I answered. Saturday took its time. I spent the day pretending to work, but my eyes kept drifting to the clock. Around 4, I finally gave up and went to get ready. I tried on 3 different shirts before settling on a dark blue one that made me look slightly less like a guy who lived in hoodies. At exactly 5, there was a knock. I opened the door, and there was Emma, wearing a light green sundress, her hair down and wavy again. The hallway light made her eyes look brighter. Hey, she said. Ready? Yeah, I said, trying not to sound as nervous as I felt. We walked the 10 feet to her car together, and as I climbed into the passenger seat, it hit me that only a week ago, I had been trying to disappear into a paperback at the beach. Now I was sitting next to her on our way to dinner, and I had no idea that this simple Thai meal would pull us even closer and force both of us to admit we were running from the same thing. The Thai place on Harbor Street was small and warm, with soft lights and the smell of garlic and spices in the air. When we walked in, Emma stepped a little closer to me as we waited for a table. I could feel the heat from her arm near mine. We got a small table by the window. Outside, the sky was turning orange as the sun started to drop. Inside, people were talking quietly, chopsticks clicking on plates. The menu is crazy, I said, scanning the long list. How are you supposed to pick one thing? We do not pick one thing, Emma said. We pick several and share. That is the only correct answer. So that is what we did. We ordered way too much. Pad Thai, green curry, fried rice, spring rolls, and some dish with basil that the server said was a favorite. When the food came, the table was full of plates and bowls, and Emma's eyes lit up. This was a good idea, I said. Of course it was, she replied. I take food very seriously. We passed dishes back and forth, trading bites and commenting on what we liked. It felt easy, comfortable. At one point, we both reached for the same plate, and her fingers brushed over mine. It was just a small touch, but it sent a warm spark up my arm. So, she said after a while, putting down her chopsticks, why do you work so much? Quote. I laughed. You are one to talk. I hear your jazz music and your keyboard going after midnight. She did a small shrug. I asked you first. I stared at my plate for a second, trying to find the real answer. Fear, I guess, I said. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of failing. Fear of going broke and having to move back in with my parents. When I am working, I feel like I am doing something about that. When I stop, All the fear catches up. Quote. She nodded like she understood that more than I knew. That makes sense, she said. For me, it is control. Work is the one thing I feel like I can control. If I do A, I get B. But life is not like that. People are not like that. So I hide in my work instead. Do you feel like it is worth it? I asked. All the stress. She was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes, she said, when a project goes right, when a client actually listens to me. But most days I feel like I am just making rich people richer while I forget how to live my own life. She looked up at me. Is that too honest for a first Thai dinner? She asked. No, I said. It is the best part of it. She smiled then, soft and real. We shared the last of the curry and joked about bad clients. She told me about a company that wanted her to make a campaign for a product that did not exist yet. I told her about a client who sent an email with the subject line, "Final changes," and then attached a list of 50 new demands. People are wild, she said, shaking her head. People are exhausting, I replied. When the check came, we argued gently about who should pay. We ended up splitting it, both of us laughing about that too. Outside, the air had cooled down. The sun was lower in the sky. We walked side by side toward the community center, our shoulders almost touching but not quite. The gathering was already busy when we arrived. The big room was full of people standing in small circles, holding paper cups and talking about weather, kids, work, and all the usual things. This is exactly why I avoid these, Emma whispered. Before I could answer, an older woman waved at us. Emma, dear, she called. Is this your friend? Yes, Mrs. Chun, Emma said. This is Ryan. He lives next door. I shook hands and got pulled into a fast stream of small talk. Mrs. Chun talked about her daughter who lived in Seattle. A man named Frank told me about fishing at 4 in the morning. A couple showed me pictures of their 3 cats. Through it all, Emma stayed close. Sometimes our hands brushed as we moved around the room. Every time it happened, I felt that same small spark. After what felt like an hour of smiling and nodding, we finally escaped out a side door onto the back patio. That was intense, I said. They all mean well, Emma said, but I am not good at that. I never know what to say. I get it, I said. I would rather have one real conversation than 50 fake ones. She glanced at me and smiled. There is a path behind the center that leads to a little park, she said. Do you want to walk? Yeah, I said. I do. We followed the narrow path behind the building. It opened up to a small grassy area with a few benches and a low fence that looked out over the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky with orange and pink streaks that reflected on the water. We stopped by the fence. The waves moved in slow, steady lines. Can I ask you something? Emma said, her voice softer now. Of course, I said. Why did you really move here? She asked. Not the short answer. Not just burnout. The real reason. I took a breath and leaned my arms on the fence. I did not like who I was becoming, I said. Back in Seattle, I was working all the time. I measured my worth by how many projects I finished and how many emails I answered. If I took a night off, I felt guilty. I stopped seeing friends. I stopped doing anything just for fun. I felt like I was turning into a machine. I looked over at her. I thought moving here would change me, I said. But I brought myself with me. Same mind, same habits. Emma stared out at the water. I did the same thing, she said quietly. In Boston, I was the person who always said yes. Yes to more work, to more responsibility, to more pressure. I was proud of being the reliable one. Then one day I woke up and realized I did not know what I liked anymore. I only knew what other people wanted from me. She let out a slow breath. So I moved here. New town, new coast, same old problem. I said yes to all the work again. I sat alone in my beautiful little apartment and told myself I was too tired to go out. I told myself I would make friends later. She turned to face me fully. Then I saw you in the hallway, she said. You in your hoodie, looking half awake, and I thought, that guy looks like how I feel. I laughed softly. That is probably accurate. We are both running, she said, just in different directions. "So what do we do?" I asked. "I do not know," she answered. "But maybe we stop trying to figure it out alone." A quiet fell between us, the good kind. The sky kept changing colors. A couple walked past with a stroller. Somewhere behind us we could hear the faint noise of people still talking inside the center. "There is this fundraiser next Saturday night," Emma said after a while. "For an ocean conservation group. It is at the old boathouse on the pier. I bought a ticket months ago and planned on not going." "Why?" I asked. "Because I did not want to go alone," she said. "I told myself I would meet people, but I did not try." She bit her lip for a second like she was nervous. "Would you go with me?" she asked. "Is my date." The word hung there between us, simple and heavy at the same time. My heart kicked up. I tried to play it cool, but I am pretty sure my voice came out a little higher when I said, "Yes, I would like that. A lot." She smiled, wide and bright. "It is semi-formal," she said, "so you will need to wear something nicer than a hoodie." "I own one decent shirt," I said. "Maybe even a tie if I can find it." "I believe in you," she said. We walked back to the center and stayed a little longer so people would not think we had vanished. But the whole time my mind was on next Saturday. On the word date. On the way she had looked at me when she asked. When the gathering ended, we walked home side by side in the dark. The streetlights cast long shadows on the sidewalk. The air smelled like the ocean and cut grass. At our building, we stopped between our two doors. "Thank you for tonight," Emma said. "For coming. For talking. For not making me feel crazy for feeling the way I do." "You are not crazy," I said. "You make more sense to me than most people I know." She smiled and reached out. Her hand squeezed my forearm for just a second. It was a simple touch, but it sent a warm line all the way up to my chest. "Good night, Ryan," she said. "Good night, Emma," I replied. She went into her apartment. I stood in the hallway for a moment, staring at my door and feeling like the whole building was somehow different now. The week before, the fundraiser felt both slow and fast. I worked on client projects, I answered emails, I tried not to think too much. It did not work. On Saturday evening, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, straightening a gray button-up shirt and fumbling with a dark tie I barely remembered how to knot. At a few minutes before 7, I stepped out into the hallway and walked the short distance to Emma's door. My hands were a little sweaty. My heart was beating way too fast for such a short walk. I knocked. The door opened. Emma stood there in an emerald green dress that made her eyes look even brighter. Her hair fell in soft waves. She had a light touch of makeup on, just enough to make her look like the most put-together version of herself. For a second, I forgot how to talk. "You look," I started, then stopped. She smiled. "I will accept nice if that is where you were going." "You look amazing," I said honestly. She glanced at my shirt and tie. "You clean up pretty well, too," she said. She reached out and straightened my tie just a little. That small, simple action made my chest feel tight in the best way. "Ready?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "I am ready." We walked out to her car and drove toward the pier, the lights of Harbor Bay reflecting on the dark water. Up ahead, the old boathouse glowed with strings of white lights. As we parked and stepped out into the cool night air, I had no idea that inside that building, with the sound of the ocean hitting the pier below us, everything between us was about to change again. The old boathouse on the pier looked like something from a movie. White string lights hung across the ceiling. Round tables with white cloths were set up around the room. Big windows showed the dark ocean just beyond the glass. I could hear waves hitting the pier under us, steady and strong. Emma walked beside me, her hand brushing mine as we moved through the crowd. Every time her fingers touched my skin, my heart jumped. She knew a few people and introduced me. "This is Ryan," she said more than once. "My neighbor. He is a graphic designer." We shook hands, made small talk, smiled. It was easier here than it had been at the community center. Maybe it was the music, or the soft lights, or the way Emma kept staying close. After a while, a small band started playing. People moved toward the open space in the middle of the room. "Want to dance?" Emma asked. "I am terrible at dancing," I warned her. "Good thing I am not grading you," she said. She held out her hand. I took it. On the dance floor, I was stiff at first. I worried about where to put my hands and how not to step on her feet. Emma laughed quietly and slid closer, placing one hand on my shoulder and the other in my hand. "Just sway," she said. "That is all we have to do." So we did. Her head rested lightly against my shoulder. The music flowed around us. The rest of the room faded. I could feel her breath against my neck. My chest felt tight and full at the same time. "I am really glad you are here with me," she said softly. "There is nowhere else I would want to be," I answered, and I meant every word. We danced for a few songs, moving slowly, talking in bits and pieces. She told me about a summer job she had in college, working at an ice cream shop. I told her about the time a client paid me in cash that smelled like perfume for some reason. Eventually, Emma pulled back a little. "I need some air," she said. "Do you want to go outside for a minute?" "Yeah," I said. "I do." We walked through a side door onto the wooden deck that wrapped around the boathouse. Out here it was quieter. The night air was cool against my warm face. The ocean stretched out below us, dark and endless, the waves glowing faintly where the pier lights hit the foam. Emma leaned on the railing, looking out at the water. "It is beautiful," she said. "Yeah," I said, but I was looking at her. After a moment, she turned toward me. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Anything," I said. "That day at the beach," she started, then paused. "When the wind grabbed my wrap and you saw me, I was so embarrassed I wanted to disappear." My stomach sank. I opened my mouth to apologize again, but she shook her head. "Let me finish," she said. I closed my mouth. "I was not just embarrassed because you looked," she said. "I was embarrassed because part of me wanted to be noticed. Not like that, not in that way. But I had felt invisible for so long. To clients, to coworkers, sometimes even to myself." She held my gaze. "I had been watching you too, you know," she added, "in the hallway, carrying grocery bags. Unlocking your door in that same old hoodie. You always looked tired, in the same way I felt. I kept thinking I should say more than hi. Sigh, ask how you are. But I never did. I just hid in my own head." She took a slow breath. "When that happened at the beach, it forced us to stop pretending we were strangers," she said. "It was awful and awkward, but it also pushed me to walk over to you, to actually talk, and I am weirdly grateful for that." My chest loosened. "It did not sound crazy," I said quietly, "because I have been wanting to talk to you too. I just thought you were too put together to ever look twice at someone like me." She huffed out a soft laugh. "I am not nearly as put together as I look," she said. "You know that now." I took a small step closer. My hand moved on its own, reaching up to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Emma," I said, "I know we have only really known each other for a few weeks, but being with you feels different. You are the first person in a long time who makes me feel like I do not have to pretend everything is fine when it is not." Her eyes shone in the dim light. "You have become the best part of my day," I added. "Every day." Her voice was quiet when she answered. "You have become that for me too," she said, "and it scares me. I do not want to mess this up. I do not want to fall back into old habits and push you away when I get stressed." "Then let's not," I said. I swallowed and forced myself to say the thing I always avoided saying. "Let's promise to be honest. If we are scared, we say it. If we are tired, we say it. If work starts taking over again, we call each other out. We do not shut down. We talk." Emma nodded slowly. "I can try to do that," she said. "I want to do that." There was a beat of silence. The waves hit the supports under the deck. Somewhere inside, people clapped at the end of a song. I took a breath. "Can I kiss you?" I asked. She smiled, small and bright. "Yes," she said. So I did. The kiss was soft and careful at first. Her lips warm against mine. My hands found her waist. She leaned closer. The world felt like it narrowed down to the two of us on that old wooden deck over the ocean. When we pulled apart, Emma rested her forehead against mine. "That was worth waiting for," she whispered. "We stayed outside for a long time, talking in that deep way people talk when they are finally being fully honest. Emma told me she had been thinking about changing her work. Maybe taking fewer big clients and focusing on smaller businesses. Maybe teaching online instead of chasing every contract. I want to help people who actually care, not just pad numbers on some report, she said. I told her about my quiet dream of building websites and designs for schools, shelters, and small nonprofits. Places that needed help but could never pay big agency rates. Why have you never tried? She asked. Fear, I said simply. Same old thing. She looked at me like she was seeing the answer clearly. What if we tried together? She asked. Your design, my marketing. We could build something that actually matters and still pays the bills. Not tomorrow, not next week, but maybe soon. You would want to work with me? I asked, surprised. I already like talking to you all day, she said. Might as well make it official. We drove home that night with the windows cracked a little, letting in the sea air. Halfway back, Emma reached over and laced her fingers through mine. I squeezed her hand. Thank you for being patient with me, she said. For not running away when things got messy. Quote, Thank you for walking across the sand and talking to me even when it was the most awkward moment of our lives, I replied. She laughed. Best terrible moment ever, she said. The months that followed were different from anything I had known before. We started small. Emma would bring her laptop over and work at my kitchen table while I worked at my desk. Sometimes we were quiet. Sometimes we shared music. Sometimes we stopped and made lunch together, burning grilled cheese and ordering pizza when it went wrong. We took walks on the beach in the evenings. We talked about our days, our fears, the dumb things clients did, the way our minds tried to convince us we were not enough. We fought sometimes. About dishes. About noise. About who was hogging the Wi-Fi. Old habits crept in. She pulled back one week when a big project came in. I shut down one day when a client hated my work. But we went back to our promise. We talked. We apologized. We tried again. Little by little, the pain of our old lives loosened its grip. About 3 months later, on a quiet morning, I woke up to find a note slid under my door in Emma's neat handwriting. Meet me at the pier at sunrise. Bring coffee. I smiled as I read it. I grabbed 2 coffees from the shop on the corner and walked down to the water. The sky was just starting to lighten when I got there. The ocean was gray and soft, the horizon edged with pink. Emma stood near the railing, hands in the pockets of her jacket, hair pulled back from the wind. Hey, I said, handing her a cup. Thank you, she said. She took a sip and let out a happy sigh. Okay. This is perfect. What are we doing up so early? I asked, leaning next to her against the rail. I have been thinking, she said, about that idea we talked about. Helping smaller groups, building a business that fits the life we actually want. My heart picked up. I want to do it, she said. Not someday, now. I want to start building something with you, something that helps people and lets us live without burning out. She turned to face me fully. And I do not just mean the business, she added. I want to build a real life with you too, one where we both make time for things that matter, where we do not hide behind work when we are scared, where we keep choosing each other even on hard days. The early light made her eyes look clearer, almost golden. What do you think? She asked. I set my coffee down on the rail and took both her hands in mine. I think I have never wanted anything more, I said. The sun started to rise, turning the water gold, and the edges of the clouds bright. The wind whipped around us, but I felt steady. Standing there with Emma, I realized something important. If that awful, embarrassing accident at the beach had never happened, we might still be 2 tired people saying hi in the hallway and going back to our lonely lives. Instead, that moment tore away the safe distance we kept. It pushed us into each other's worlds. It forced us to see and be seen. I used to think that day at the beach was the worst moment of my life, I said. Emma smiled. Now? She asked. Now I think it was the strange, messy start of the best thing that ever happened to me, I said. She squeezed my hands and stepped closer. Same, she whispered. And as the waves rolled in and the sun rose higher over Harbor Bay, I kissed her again, knowing that this time, nothing about it was an accident. We were here on purpose, together, ready to face the messy, beautiful work of building a life, one honest day at a time.